Hello, I'm Chris Gardner. I've built a model of Ventnor West station on the Isle of Wight. This started when, as a member of Alton Model Railway Group, I had a friend called Mark Precious who had built a model of Merston Junction, one of the island stations, and the branch to Ventnor West left the main line at Merston and made its way down to Ventnor West. It was the last railway line to be built on the Isle of Wight, and it became the first to close. That's not an unusual phenomenon because by the time the last lines get built, then people have probably got as many railways as they need. But the idea behind the Ventnor West scheme was to capture the ferry traffic from Cowes, of holidaymakers who were going to the south of the island, which was the great sort of holiday spot. And the great sort of promotional thing with Ventnor West was that they advertised it was only 168 feet above the town, whereas the other Ventnor station was a lot higher. So the thinking was it'll be easier to get to. Either way, both stations are absolutely hellish to get to the town. If you're down to sea level, you've got to walk down steep roads of 168 feet. And they'd have been better off really building a funicular railway, probably, from the other Ventnor station than opening a new one at Ventnor West. But it opened with great ambition. The station was supplied with 2 platforms. They only ever used one, in fact. And it had a set of refreshment rooms, and it had all the facilities for luggage in advance and whatever. And it started out with a grand fanfare with 8 trains a day, 8 return trips from Cowes to Ventnor West. And it gradually faded away from there. After the Second World War, the trains became push-pull only, and they went from Merston rather than from Cowes. So if you're a holidaymaker, you had to change trains at Merston. And then in 1952, long before the Beaching Acts, but in 1952, the line was closed. The inspiration from the layout came from the fact that Mark had built his model of Merston Junction, and we have created now actually three stations. Mark built Merston, I built Ventnor West as an add-on to Merston. Mark has now added St Lawrence Halt to that, and we've got about 40 feet of track. The orientation of the layout was crucial, and we ended up with the interesting challenge of modelling Ventnor West from the wrong side, as it were. And we've created this vista of the sea, which you may be able to see in shot. And we created a sort of gap between the scenery and the sea, so there's a sense of distance. And we like to think we've captured the sort of interesting atmosphere of a station perched above the sea. And we run the layout together at exhibitions. It's not a home layout at all, so this comes out once or twice a year when we take it to an exhibition. And we have a lot of fun with it. The basic construction, there were 2 ready-made baseboards that I bought from a friend. These rather dictated the space I had available. The track plan is the slightly reduced track plan. Ventnor West used to have an extra passing loop, but they took it out. 1 or 2 things are slightly wrong. The goods shed, for example, is on the wrong line. It should be on this line here, but as you can see, I'd reached the edge of the baseboard, so that was all I could do. All the buildings on the layout had to be scratch built to look like the originals. The first one that I built is the signal box here. Now that was the last the last building I made using sort of old principles. It was all cut from plastic art. It's completely scratch built. I'm rather proud of it. Sadly, because of the way around the layout is, we can't actually see the front, but I can assure you it looks all right, and it looks quite good from the back. And then moving on, the station building. This house still exists in real life, and I think most of that part of the station is still there, and that's been demolished. It's a private house. It was available to rent as a holiday house a while ago, but I think it's now been sold to someone who lives there permanently. Now this was the first bit of laser cutting I got into. I used York Model Works, where Julie provides a wonderful service. She guided me through the process of drawing up on the computer the shape of the building, the windows, and sent me the beautifully cut pieces of plywood for the building, and the Romark is the material they use for the windows. So that was all scratch built. This little chap here is me, scanned by Alan Butler of Model U. I was the first person that he scanned at an exhibition, so he always remembers me when I see him, which is marvellous. And he's a terrific guy, and he's developing his services and really producing high quality stuff. Now this is the control panel. It's got three elements. The first is a little track diagram which has isolating switches for sections. I'm actually a DCC user, but Mark's layout, to which this is fundamentally connected, is analog. So I had to put in some extra switches to be able to isolate locomotives. The second part, this is rather fun. This is a interlocked lever frame from a company in Australia called Modritech, who are unfortunately no longer trading. But the idea was you supply your track plan and the desired interlocking, and the company sends back a kit to the specification you need with explicit instructions on how to slot the how to fettle the various parts of the mechanism. The interlocking means that if you want to send a train into platform 1, which pulls signal number 1, you won't be able to do it unless the road into the platform is set, which is lever number 5. So that has turned the lever to allow the train to go into platform 2. But you'll have to believe me that works, but only certain combinations of levers can work. It more or less ensures you don't have collisions. And the third element of the control panel is the bell signal, which is, I can't demonstrate because I haven't got the other half connected, but it's simply a bell push, and pushing this button will make the bell at Merston sound. And similarly, if Merston presses the bell, it makes this. So this is how we communicate 40 feet down the line to say, I've got a train for you, or please send me a train. The element we haven't built yet, and I haven't really worked out how to do it, is the indication that you have of when the train's actually on the way. A little switch is meant to go to say train online. But that's the first part of it. And that's how we control Ventnor West 40 feet away from Merston. Now, a happy circumstance. I've lived in Alton for a long time now. We've got a very good model shop, the Alton Model Centre. And in the shop, I met a gentleman whom I told I was making a model of Ventnor West Station. He said, I used to live in a house on the site of Ventnor West Station. So he now lives just up the hill from me. So I want to introduce Godfrey Glynn to tell you a bit about this house here, which is quite historic, and of the 2 or 3 years that he spent there as a boy. Godfrey.
Chris, I came to the site as a 7-year-old in 1955. My father rented the Little Pax cottage, which had been the governor's summer house back in the 1700s, and been renovated. And it was owned by a mysterious man who was in the Ministry of Defence in London, who, as a 7 or 8-year-old, I was convinced was a spy, but I'm sure that's pure fiction in the mind of a small boy. The house overlooked what was the Ventnor West railway station, which, alas, had by that time disappeared, in the sense that all the track had been taken up.
It had been closed in 1952.
It had been closed a number of years, but the ballast was still there. In fact, in the photographs that I've got, or one photograph, you can really see where the sleepers were still leaving their mark in the ballast. And so as a small child, with the daughter of the station master from Wroxall, who lived in the station house itself. We would cycle around doing nefarious things. So we had the whole of the yard to play in. It was brilliant. And behind the house was 32 acres of woodland. So the house has been changed since I lived there. It's been extended, and the new owner has done some quite remarkable changes to it. It's a beautiful spot, still has this amazing view. The castle, which was of course a figment of some Victorian's imagination, has since been removed, as has the old TB hospital, which is now the site of the Ventnor Tropical Gardens. But it was nice to be able to provide you with a rough sketch, at least, of what the house was like.
Oh yes,
back in 19
Godfrey gave me photos of the house, of the garden. I still managed to get details wrong, and we've lost a bit of the roofing tiles there. And he also had photos of the rest of the station site and the official British Railways map
Yes.
of the station, which well, it didn't quite fit on my baseboards, but it's almost right.
It's a lovely little station, and it cries out to be modelled. In fact, I was really peeved to find that you'd done it, because I was going to do it myself. But you've done a beautiful job. Congratulations.
Don't have to say that.
No, it's only the truth. It's wonderful.